5 games to go in the Premier League season for Manchester United. We are very close to the end now. We did get the win against Villa on the weekend, but as always, we were pretty darn poor. Adam, what needs to change going into the Palace game?
Oh man, I think if we took the game against Crystal Palace against Aston Villa as we did against West Ham, the same tempo and everything, then you'd be happy, but we just didn't seem like we wanted to play for it. And you got you questioning, are the players playing for the manager anymore? They're just playing for the FA Cup. Because by that performance, you wouldn't really think they are playing for the manager, because it was lackluster. Only the youngsters really gave you anything to be hopeful about, and it pretty much epitomised our whole season. And we were lucky Villa didn't score towards the end, because they had their chances, and I thought that they did score at one point. So it was a disappointing performance, and a day when we all turned up thinking we'll get 2 or 3 goals and hopefully go into the semi-final at the weekend with a little bit of confidence. But now we're going into the game against Crystal Palace thinking if we play anything like we did against Aston Villa, then we'll get punished, because they've got better players in attack.
Howson, what do we need to do in terms of our general setup going into this game? Is there anything that we particularly need to change, or is it purely just a case of tempo?
I think it's tempo, but it's also attitude towards the game, because I think the crowd at weekend turned up thinking that we'd won this game already. Villa are down, one of the worst Premier League teams in history. We're just going to turn up and win like we probably would have done back in the Fergie days, but it wasn't the case, and we made it hard for ourselves, and the last 10 minutes was a joke. And I think some of the substitutions was a bit debatable, but I think the selection and substitutions have definitely got an eye on Wembley. Now we're playing Palace, who got a decent result against Arsenal at the weekend, which has done us a massive favour in terms of our top 4 chances. But we could do ourselves all the harm in the world by not going and capitalising on that ourselves this coming match. So I think what we need to do is guard against complacency, pick a strong side, almost disregarding what's happening at weekend. Because if we go in thinking about weekend, we don't get a result on Wednesday, and then we don't get a result against Everton, then what are we doing? You've got to take each game as it comes and not think what's coming after it. So I want to see us put our best 11 out there and make sure we get the maximum 3 points that are available.
You mentioned the attitude of the fans as well. I'm sort of getting that same feeling towards this game, that a lot of people have almost forgot that it's even happening, to be honest, but it's still an absolutely huge game for Man United's season, because if, like you say, if we are to drop points, it could potentially be top 4 over. Jim, is there anything that you've seen from Man United recently that has maybe scared you going into this game as a Crystal Palace fan?
Well, aside from the fact that it's away to Man United, where we never get anything, not really. It's weird looking at United from the outside looking in, because there's some brilliant players in that team. Fantastic world-class players, and yet for some reason it doesn't seem to be clicking, and whether it's the style of play or the way Van Gaal's sending them out. I think, to be honest, this is the first time I think I've gone into a game of Palace away at Man United without that fear factor, which I think might be a problem for United in general. I mean, and now I've said that, we're probably going to lose 6-0, but there's definitely something that's not quite there.
We don't score more than 2.
There is nothing worse than hearing an opposition fan of, and all due respect, Jim, of a team that, like Crystal Palace, that we should be beating at Old Trafford, saying they're just not as scared anymore when they're coming to Old Trafford. It's not even a fortress anymore. Every team comes thinking they can win, but hopefully we can pull it off against Crystal Palace with a better performance than the Villa game. Howson touched on it before. Do you think we should have one eye on the cup for this weekend then and start resting players for this Crystal Palace game, or do you think this is just as important as the semi-final? Adam?
That'd be the worst thing to do, because then what if we rested players? Then again, if we rested players and threw in some of our youngsters, we probably have a better performance, to be honest, because the players just don't seem up for it. But at the same time, that's the wrong way to go about it. Arsenal have lost all their momentum going into the top 4 race. I don't think Manchester City will slip out now. They're looking quite good. They beat Chelsea comfortably at the weekend. So we're looking at Arsenal if you want to catch anybody. They've still got a few difficult games coming up, Sunderland away, and then Manchester City they've got as well. So if we can win all our games, which I think is the task now, then top 4 is still possible. But can we do that? I don't know, because it's these kind of games where all season we've come into, it's been 0-0 at half time. We've not changed anything going into the second half. and then it's just gone into a draw, or even worse, the away team snatched something. So I'm not confident ahead of this game, regardless of what team we pick. But I would like to see the likes of Fosu Mensah start in a game. Maybe rest Daley Blind, who has looked tired. Marcus Rashford, I'd keep him in the team because they give us that enthusiasm that we lack when they're not in it.
Howson, what do you think about the idea of maybe playing some players that we haven't seen in a while, the likes of Andreas Pereira, Adnan Januzaj possibly?
Pereira, yes. Januzaj, no. Pereira, although he's not played for a few weeks in the 21s, he came on as a sub last week. We've not really seen a great deal of him, so he could be a little bit rusty. Januzaj we haven't seen of at all. So no to Januzaj. I think a player I wouldn't mind seeing come back in would be Joe Riley. Very similar mould to Marcus Rashford.
Poor as well.
The way he hunts down the ball, his determination is absolutely infectious, and I think that's the sort of thing that we need in a game like this. Maybe he's not the highest quality of player. I mean, you're not going to put him up against Luke Shaw. You're not probably even going to put him up against Darmian in terms of like pure defending ability. But sometimes it's not about the ability that a player has if the player's not giving the maximum 100%. If we've got some players coasting at the moment, giving 75, 80%, and the difference in a game can actually be a player of lesser ability, like a Joe Riley, whose confidence and attitude is absolutely bang on, because the fans' attitude wasn't good at weekend. And I have a feeling, like we've already said, people are forgetting about this. No one's talking about Palace. Everyone's thinking about Wembley. So the fans are probably going to have the same sort of attitude to the game. And then it's the duty of the fans and the players to lift each other. And I think if we play somebody like Joe Riley, we play someone like Rashford, and with the players look like they're on it, that will lift the crowd a little bit. And then between the two of us, we can hopefully get the 3 points, because we desperately need this. Top four's still alive, but it's out the window if we don't get 3 points this week.
Let's not forget as well that Crystal Palace are at Wembley this weekend. Jim, do you think you guys are going to be resting any players, or do you think you're going to go all out to get the win at Old Trafford?
I think possibly. It depends on injuries. We've had quite a lot of injuries, so if we had a full squad to pick from, then Pardew might have rested some players, but I don't know. I think Pardew is so desperate to do well in the Cup for Palace, because he played in the semi-final and the final for Palace back in the 90s. He really, really, really wants to win the FA Cup, or at least get to the final. So there is definitely a risk of us resting some players, but we've had so many injuries that he might just have to pick the best 11 that are there anyway. But yeah, it could well be a case that both teams have potentially got slightly weakened teams out.
Here's hoping that you do what Mick McCarthy did with Wolves, I think it was a few years ago, where he just knew that he wasn't going to win and just played all his kids, and United ended up trouncing him. However, the difference is there's a very big...
We haven't got enough players to do that, although I would like to see us play more kids. And I think Palace fans are looking at United and actually thinking we want to do that, because you look at someone like Rashford. We would love to see a Rashford come through at Palace and do well. We've got a history of bringing through players, like Klein and Moses and Zaha, who are now playing in the Premier League. Oh my word, we'd love a Rashford to come through and do well for us in the first team. We've got a couple of players. We've got a player called Suli Kaikai. He's been on loan. He looks good. We'd love that. So there is an element of Palace fans that actually maybe this week would be the week to chuck some kids in.
I was going to ask you actually, do you have any youngsters at all in the squad that maybe could get a debut or could get one of their first few starts against Man United?
Yeah, so there's a lad called Suli Kaikai. He's out on loan at Shrewsbury, but he's been smashing the goals in for them. They're not going to call him back, but he maybe at some point in the future. We've got a lad called Hiram Boateng. I can't remember if he's out on loan or not, but he's a midfielder, a big beefy midfielder. He's definitely one that at some point could come in. I think, to be honest, all our lads that are knocking on the door are out on loan. But I personally would love to see them. I think this could be the game for them if they were around. Because what's the point in having kids and having an academy, and we spend a lot of money on an academy, if you're not going to give them a chance? And we're all but safe now, really, although that's probably famous last words. We're probably going to now go down. That would be so Palace.
Egbo, is he still there?
He's gone. He went to Borussia Mönchengladbach at the start of this season.
Right, because he's a player. Well,
yeah,
he's not
fantastic.
a player anymore, but he was a great player.
Fantastic, yeah. And to be honest, Joel Ward's been playing at right back. I think Egbo would seriously be getting a chance if he was still here, but he's gone to play regularly for Mönchengladbach. Although I'll be honest, I have no idea if he is or not.
Some great analysis there from Howson. He is a player. Howson, what's your 11 for the game against Palace?
Spanish Dave, Joe Riley at right back, Cameron Borthwick-Jackson left back, Fosu Mensah and Smalling centre half. So very young back four, but very, very good ability and quite potent attacking defence. I don't know what's the state of Herrera's injury. Do we know if he's likely to be back? Was it just a knock? What's the crack?
Well, last night it was just a knock to stumped his toe or something. So
okay, well, if fit, I'd like to see Herrera alongside Schneidlin, and then the forward three of Martial, Rooney, Memphis with Rashford up front. Pretty much the same team I wanted to see against Villa, really.
I like the idea of Cameron Borthwick-Jackson coming back into the team. It's been far too long since we've seen him. Adam, what's your team for the Palace game?
I picked Borthwick-Jackson as well, but I'll start from the back. Obviously, David De Gea in goal. I went with Fosu and Smalling as well. I think Blind deserves a rest. He played well against Aston Villa, but I think continuing to play him, he could start playing into mistakes because he's looking tired at the moment. Resting with the semi-final ahead, put Fosu and Smalling in. I don't think that would weaken the defence either. And I think it'd be interesting to see Fosu Mensah up against the likes of Balassi, Zaha, Puncheon, and if Adebayor plays, to see that battle would be interesting as well. Then I'd stick with Valencia at right back. I thought he did well against Aston Villa. Although it was Aston Villa, his cross for the goal was good, and he got down the right quite well. A game that is quite strong, is quick as well, so we can use that to counter Crystal Palace's threats as well. Schneidlin, Herrera in the midfield, and Wayne Rooney with the other lads playing off them. So it'd be interesting to see if Wayne Rooney is that deep again, because with Rashford running off him, if Martial starts running off him, some of his passing the other day was quality. So it'd be nice to see him in that position again, see how he does there. So I'd go with Schneidlin, Herrera, Rooney. I'd keep Memphis in the team, Rashford and Martial.
Fosu Mensah and Smalling. Keep Memphis in. Fosu Mensah and Smalling, though, together at the back. That is just properly rocking an hard place, isn't it? Jim, what do you reckon the Crystal Palace team will be that goes to Old Trafford?
I think it'll be probably quite similar to the team that started against Arsenal, which was the normal back four of Ward, Dan, Delaney and Suarez. Suarez is a weird one. He literally goes from being terrible one game to amazing the next game. So I have no idea how he'll play.
Sorry to interrupt there, Jim. Is Dan injured? I was watching Sky Sports earlier.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I don't know. I really hope he's not, because he picked up a knock in the game, didn't he? If he is injured, then you will win. And I'm not saying we're a one-man team, but like, he holds our defence together. He is probably our best player. And if he is injured, we'll be in trouble. Although, having said that, if he has got a small knock, maybe Pardew will rest him for the semi-final. So that could be a change there. But Adebayor is an interesting one, you said. I think Adebayor might possibly start, because Connor Wickham is our main striker, but he's not really fit enough to play a full game. So he might be rested for Sunday. And I think Adebayor, he's actually been really good for us in the last couple of games coming off the bench. It changed the game at Arsenal, which obviously he would have loved because he got so much stick on the sidelines from the Arsenal fans. Set up the goal and was good at Everton on Wednesday. So it could well be that Adebayor, I think, possibly starts for Palace, which, you know, it's been a gamble signing him and it's not really paid off. But last couple of games, he's actually looked like he's got a little thing to offer the team. So I think he might be involved.
I can't imagine anything worse than Emmanuel Adebayor scoring against us at Old Trafford.
He's going to turn into Ronaldo or something, isn't he, on the week?
No, we're going to make him look like Ronaldo. That's what's going to happen. Halson, who are you most worried about when it comes to Crystal Palace?
Well, I think they've got the obvious threats, haven't they? They've got pace, and they've got very tricky players in the likes of Zaha and Balassi, and I think those are the ones. But Crystal Palace struggle scoring goals. They've not got anybody scored more than 5 goals over the whole course of the season. You're looking at players that have played 30 games here, and when you consider Marcus Rashford has scored 7 in 12, that's quite poor from a Crystal Palace perspective. And Connor Wickham is their main striker, but has he been out for most of the season? Because he's not played a great deal, has he?
Yeah, he's been out for quite a bit. So has Balassi. So has Puncheon, James MacArthur. We've had injuries to really key players, which coincided with that horrible 14-game winless run, which is essentially relegation form, which finally we now seem to have come out of. So it sounds like excuses, doesn't it, when you say, oh, we had injuries to key players and that's why I played badly, but it genuinely seems like that was the case at Palace. But they're all, apart from MacArthur, they're all back now. So hopefully we'll at least see a better run towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm not too bothered about Wickham. I don't think he offers a great deal of threat. I think he can be kept quiet. Adebayor, if he decides to turn up, you've got a nightmare on your hands, but more than likely he doesn't turn up. He turns up like he's doing the occasional game against his old club, so I think there'd probably be nothing from Adebayor. Even if he starts, I think he can be kept a lid on, as long as you keep the supply away from him. But Balassi and Zaha, it's that trickery, that pace and trickery can kill you in the final third. So as long as you keep that quiet, I think we'd be fine. The rest of the team, there's nothing spectacular in it, I think.
I think Kabay and Jedinak are a good midfield pairing at times, and I think as well with Puncheon, I think he's quite underrated. I like some of his trickery, but as you say, if we allow Kabay to bring the likes of Zaha, Balassi into the game, then they will cause us problems. But if we keep a lid on that, we'll be cool.
Can we deal with them then? Adam, what's your score for the game?
1-0.
1-0. It probably will be as well. You're probably right. Alison, what's your score?
I don't want to say 1-0 again, because obviously it's a pretty easy score to predict at Old Trafford at the moment, isn't it? 1-0 or 0-0. I do think we can get about these. I don't think they're defensively mega strong, and I do think they're going to have more of an eye on the weekend than us. Or I'm probably projecting a little bit there. I'm hoping they've got more of an eye on the weekend than we have. So I'm going to say 2-0 United, and I'd love to see another debut, maybe another youngster, maybe someone like Rothwell or Weir on the bench and brought in to show us what they can do as well.
Jim, the Crystal Palace fan, do you think you can get anything at Old Trafford?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think now's probably the time. Yeah, probably. I mean, this is Palace. You never know what's going to happen with them. You know, the games you think they're going to win, we lose, and the games like Arsenal, where you think we're going to get literally nothing, we somehow get a point. So, I think it will probably be like the Arsenal game, in that you guys will probably dominate and have a lot of the ball and a few chances, and then we might sneak something at the end. So, I actually think 1-1 is probably a decent shout.
Optimistic. I'll be optimistic as well for Man United. I'll say 2-0. We'll score 2. It'll be crazy. Guys, that has been the Crystal Palace preview. Get your comments in below. Tell me about anything that you think the guys have spoken about, whether you agree or disagree. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this as well. See you in a bit.
Hi guys, welcome to Full Time Devils. I'm Adam McCullough. Jose Mourinho has reportedly had an approach from Paris Saint-Germain